Hi guys. So today's talk's a little different. Today's talk is more about what do we do when our back's against the wall. Like in those moments when 3D is bigger than life and it feels as if it's just bigger than us. What do we do, in those moments? And why do we set those things up? So here's what happens and what we do. Basically, the idea being that these are the moments that we've set up as shortcuts. And a lot of times we don't realize that. And a lot of times we look to remove our obstacles out of our way as opposed to embracing them and stepping forward into them, accepting it. And a lot of times we don't value this moment in our lives. And this moment that I want to call is our do or die moment. When our back's against the wall, when 3D seems larger than life, when our circumstances seem bigger, right? These are the exact opportunities that we have in our lives so that we can develop who we are and so that we can test our faith, and they're shortcuts. So I want to give you an idea of what I mean by this. So recently I had a phone call with someone who was at that moment in her life where her back felt against the wall, where her father was sick, where she wasn't feeling so hot, and she was just back against the wall. And in that moment, she's like, Cindy, what do I do right now? And I said, well, the first things first is we have to calm down. Second thing is we have to remember why we set these things up. Just because these obstacles are here does not mean that this is the moment that we give up on life. This is the moment where we stand up and we say, we're bigger than these things, right? But we have to remember these moments and we have to overcome them this way. And the way that they're overcome is by accepting and focusing on the solution, not the problem. And this is easier said than done on most occasions, but I'm trying to say this is the way through and out, right? Now, here's the best news about hitting rock bottom. There's nowhere else to go. You have nothing left to lose. Now, rock bottom, what can rock bottom look like, right? Rock bottom can look like an illness. Rock bottom could look like a potential sentence, our freedoms being taken away. It can look like a drug addiction. It can look like an alcoholic addiction. All kinds of rock bottoms. Technically, we're deciding what those rock bottoms are, but those rock bottoms, when we hit those moments, those are the moments where there's nowhere else to go, right? We either apply the law or we don't in those moments, right? Our back is against the wall. There's nothing else to lose. So I'll give you the example I was saying, right? So I basically talked this woman off her ledge and I helped her. And the best part of this story, because I'm shortening it, I'm not going to make it too long, is that she wrote me back and she said, Cindy, you're absolutely right. When you place your hands in the moment of the fire and you simply accept and you do the best that you can do in the moment and you still prove the law because you don't lose faith, that's better than manifesting any pair of shoes or any other faith builder we can ever have. And I said, yes, absolutely. So I have another friend who, I'll use her as an example. She recently had, not too long ago, had a really bad, severe diagnosis of cancer. Had to have several surgeries and it just did not look good. And we talked in the same conversation I had with her. This is great news. These are these moments when we have to apply this or not. And she said she reached a point of surrender where she said, I could possibly die. I don't want to die, but this is the worst possible scenario. There is nowhere else to go. So I have no choice in this moment. These are the moments that I'm going to apply the law, and I'm going to do the best that I can to be the miracle that I can be and prove this law to myself. And she had her surgery and overcame it. And the doctors could not explain how she was able to overcome such a severe diagnosis and be the miracle that she was. But the reason that she was because in that moment she used the law with her back against the wall with absolutely no choice. But here's the best part of this event when you have no choice, when your back's against the wall, when the only thing you can do is surrender and do whatever you can do, which is apply the law. The best part of this is once you prove that you can do the impossible, that you can overcome anything, that once you overcome this, your faith has just exponentially quadrupled, and that's the type of faith that gets instant manifestation for anything. No one can tell you anything at that point. No one can tell you anything is impossible because you have all kinds of versions in which you've seen the impossible come to, become not impossible. Obviously, you've overcome it. And so usually what I want to say, I guess, or what I'm trying to say is there is value in these moments when we are most afraid, when we are so terrified that something can go wrong. There is value in facing our mortality and applying the law when it most counts. There is value when you overcome the worst obstacle you could possibly overcome, when there's absolutely nothing else you can do except this. Because, here's the thing. We don't overcome our fear of death that easily. I have, okay? I have. I really don't care whether I'm here or not here. To me, I'm living at this point from a whole new point of acceptance of my life. So if it ends tomorrow, it ends tomorrow. It is what it is, okay? I'm okay with that. I have no fear of this, okay? It takes a while to reach this level of just lack of fear in this sense, okay? But what it does propel you to do is it forces you to live. There's nothing like death in this moment. Sorry, I'm getting a call. There's nothing like death to help you understand your purpose for living and help you want to live more and have a fuller, richer, more fulfilled life. And so if this is the exact moment that brings you to the culmination of you testing this law, then so be it. Get at it. Do it. It saves your life. It saves your life every single time. It actually defines who you are. See, there's a certain level of, pardon my French, but unfuckwithability that you gain, okay, from the fact that you have been through enough fires and you have survived the absolute best that you absolutely can, and that you've been forced to place your hands in the fire at all times and test that faith. There is a level of unfuckwithability that comes with that understanding of overcoming those things. A lot of times what we do is we pray, please take the problem away. That's not really what develops us as people. No, it's how we react to the problem and how we develop our faith in ourselves that determines who we actually are. And that obstacle should always be looked at as an opportunity. Not as a problem, as an opportunity. It is an opportunity to grow as an individual, to test your faith, and to develop the type of unfuckwithability. No one can tell you anything at this point because your life is a living testimony for the impossible. Right? Your life is a living testimony of the impossible. I've been forced to live that way my entire life. In fact, one of my weaknesses is that I'm quite defensive when what I feel like my boundaries are pushed. Okay, I absolutely don't do well with those situations because all I've ever had to do was defend and fend for my life. Okay, that was the narrative I inherited, and so that's all I know how to do, and I still reactionarily sometimes do that. I'm working on developing as a person not to do those things, but it is what I've done my whole life to survive. Okay, but there's a certain level of fight to want to live. There's a certain level of gusto and character that is developed from these situations, and to be honest, I guess the opposite could have been true. I could have had a really easygoing life. I could have had a really, not know what to do with problems, and so then problems disseminate me and totally destroy me. And I'm not saying that they can't feel like that when they do, and I know that they can have that ability, But that's when you stand up. That's when you use the law. That's when, above all odds, against all things that you believe, you trust in the law. That's how you develop this unfuck with ability. It's usually in these situations when the thing that we most desire is taken away, and I realize how special they are, or how special some situation is, or our health, for example. But it's these impossible situations, right? Like, do you really think that Joe Dispenza would have the type of faith that he does if he had reconstructed his whole spine in his mind in the worst hour when the best doctors were telling him absolutely no, there's no way you'll ever walk again? Who did he serve in that moment? Because see, that's the culmination of what I want to tell you guys today, right? You can't serve two masters. What does that really mean? You have a choice between your inner reality and your outer reality. But if you choose your outer reality, it will make you its servant and you will be subject to whatever it decides. That's an illusion, but it is what is happening. Okay? However, if your inner conviction overtakes this situation, whatever it happens to be, and you do this on a regular and consistent basis, you develop the type of faith muscles where you can get up on stage and say things like this and mean them. You can stand up and be like, listen, my life is a living testimony of impossible things, so this is where my faith comes from. It is what it is. It's what I've done my whole life. And so I guess that's how I want to leave you. I want you to remember that you're not serving two masters. You have a choice. But remember, if you are facing the wrong way, if the problem seems bigger than you, you are now serving the wrong master. You are making the circumstances bigger and not your ability to overcome them. And so we're facing the wrong way. We cannot serve both. So we cannot be victim and victor. And so in those moments when we're really put with our back against the wall, when we have no other choice, we must choose victor. Even when every fiber in our being wants to scream victim. Sometimes taking radical responsibility for those things is enough. But lately I've been getting a lot of calls about emergency-like situations and my back's against the wall and my freedoms feel threatened, or this feels that, or this feels, what do I do in this moment when I can't breathe and the panic attack is too much? What do I do? Well, that's when you're meant to put your hands in the fire for God. Do it. Do it and develop the type of faith that will make you unfuckwithable. Do it and the type of thing that where circumstances absolutely have no impact on whether you're okay. No matter what they are, because you serve the inner world that then controls the outer circumstances, not the outer circumstances. I know how tempting it is to do that. But until your inner conviction complies to your outer reality, you haven't mastered it. So when our back's against the fire, when our back's against the wall, there's absolutely nothing else we can do. These are those moments that we have to act on our faith, because these are why we set them up. They're shortcuts. They're absolute shortcuts. No one who has faced a hard and difficult situation is incapable of overcoming it. Absolutely no one. I don't care if it's the worst health diagnosis you've ever gotten. I don't care if it has to do with where you are financially. I don't care if it has to do with a person. No situation is impossible to overcome. But usually these situations, when the outer circumstances turn into chaos, that's when your peace must determine your next move. That's when your peace becomes your power, and that's when your peace actually helps you overcome whatever situations you are doing. Don't pray to remove the obstacle. Pray that you maintain the faith to become the solution. That's what's needed. That's what's needed in these moments. And I'm speaking from someone who, her whole life, that's all she's known how to do. You know, you adjust. You adjust. And you keep adjusting. And I've been placed in the fire more than enough times. I mean, I've had to cure a dying woman on the fly only because she believed that I could, but I've had to do it on the fly. No idea what I'm doing. Somehow I pulled upon some kind of ancient knowledge because I meditated on it, and I did, but I did it on the fly. But after that happened, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I just did the impossible here. There is value in that. Nothing is impossible. Usually when you're placed against, your back against the wall, this is why it's set up. It's so you can discover who you are. So you can overcome these situations. So you can save your life. So you can put the law to test and believe that it works. All of these situations are in fact serving you. And I didn't mean for this to be so somber, but it's, I got 5 phone calls today, back-to-back, emergency-like situations of people feeling like that. So I thought it was a good time to tell everyone at the same time. These situations do not rule you. You are bigger than them. You always have been. You set them up. You set them up before you were born. I know it sounds crazy. Who possibly sets these things up this way? Why would I set myself up to be hurt this way? I get it. I get it. And yet, if you knew on the spiritual side that all of this is imaginary and it's not actually happening to your body, you could see how you could easily detach from it and decide to do it for the sake of the experience. And that's what we're doing. Learning for the sake of the experience, but you can't get it wrong. You can't get it wrong. And there is advantages in being at rock bottom if that's where you happen to be. Because if you notice, it only strengthens your desire. When your health is threatened, you desire health even more. When your partnership is threatened, you desire their love even more. When your wealth is threatened, whatever, it doesn't really matter what it is. You can't get it wrong. Your desire just gets asserted more, which means there is a larger solution hidden within the problem, and you must develop the type of conviction that knows that God's ideas are whole to get you to the other side. It will serve a purpose, because when you get to the other side and you have survived what seems like an impossible situation, you will be not only patting yourself on the back and happy and joyful, you will start to develop that type of faith muscle that says, wow, I just moved a mountain. And when you start doing that, you start understanding the value of adversity. And when you start valuing adversity, not that saying that you go out and look for it, but what happens is when it occurs to you, you don't react the same way. You kind of like get excited about it. And so, ooh, let's see what we can do with faith now. So there is value in it. There is value in all of these problems. Okay? We just have to train our mind to see it. And you have the wrong attitude if you're saying, just please make it go away. Because our growth is done in the adversity. Our growth is done in admitting who we are and what we're doing and how we're getting and interacting in these situations, because this is how we develop our faith. This is how we come back. The best stories come back from the worst situations. Absolute worst. Like, you know, I always like to use like Tina Turner as a perfect example, right? You know, her love songs, her story, or everything was all based on the fact that she was getting the crap beat out of her by her husband secretly. And yet in that moment, she faced death. because Ike threatened to kill her if he didn't come back. And she said, life with you like that would be death anyway, so go ahead and pull the trigger, and kept on walking with no fear, and he could not do it. She faced her fear. All of you can develop the type of faith that is required when you're facing this fear. It does not need to be bigger than you. The more you do this, the more you develop the type of understanding that helps you see how much bigger you are than your circumstances. You are so much bigger than that. The analogy I always like to give is the problem, no matter how big and insurmountable it feels, is like a mouse, and you're like this lion, and to make the problem bigger is for the lion to be afraid of the mouse. Right? But since we don't know where that lion, we inadvertently tend to fear that mouse. Don't. It is not bigger than who you are. You are so much bigger than your circumstances. So I hope that helps. And I apologize for all the craziness that's going on in people's lives. Listen, we have to purge. And some of this stuff has to come out. And I realize that it's going to test our faith. But it also helps you develop who you are. It can't go with you. We're headed to a world where everything is instant. In fact, to be with me is to be in a world where everything is instant. It happens instant, 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 okay? If you're headed towards that world where everything happens instant, okay? The way you get kicked out of this world is to forget that it's instant, okay? And if we were to do that with an undisciplined mind, we would create all kinds of chaos. Hence why it only exists in 3D. Like the hint I gave you guys? It only exists in 3D. Okay? We would create all kinds of chaos in our world, an instant world, if everything happened. If you thought, oh no, what if I get in an accident? And so then, or what if my girlfriend gets in an accident, and boom, she gets in an accident the next day. We would create that chaos. So you have to understand why this chaos can't go with you. It has to be purged. And people have to be strong enough to purge this stuff and let it go. Because it can't go with you to instant land. It just can't. Okay? So while this chaos is going on, these are the absolute best times to trust your faith and allow your faith to work for you. There is an advantage to being at rock bottom when you have no other way out and you have no choice but to trust. There is an advantage of that. Know that everything is working in your favor. Start adopting and training your mind. It's hard to do when your back is against the wall. I get it. Do it anyway. Do it anyway. You have nothing left to lose. Especially when our back's against the wall. You have nothing left to lose, so do it. Do it anyway. There is value in these moments, I promise you. You know, I honestly, I think about that a lot sometimes. I think about all the impossible situations I've had to overcome and all the crazy, impossible situations. My life has just become a living testimony of that. And I think the reason more so-called impossible things keep happening is that I stopped denying them. I just kind of accepted, yeah, impossible things happen to me all the time. That's how come I know everything's possible. So adopt that attitude. And take advantage of these moments that are forged in the fire. I love you guys. Bye. Yes, Jeff, actually. Sorry, I just read that. People make monuments out of molehills sometimes. Bye, guys.